Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is the last stage of Tour of Romandie 2022, Stage 5. Now, it's a time trial stage here at Tour of Romandie. It's 15.8 kilometers long. The first 5 kilometers is flat, so we know, of course, there's going to be bike changes with all the GC favorites out here at Tour of Romandie. They're going to change someplace at the beginning of the climb, and you always want to change when it's the steepest part of the climb so you can lose all of the flat speed that you had carried into the climb. And as soon as the bike finally loses all that speed, that's when you want to jump over to the side of the road, hop off that TT bike, and jump on your super lightweight road racing machine, and then try to get back up to speed and carry that all the way to the finish line. Now, when today's racing starts, there's a lot of excitement still to be had because the riders in the top 10 on general classification are all wrapped up neatly within 45 seconds of each other. Rowan Dennis is race leader. Second on the general classification at 15 seconds back is Juan Ayuso, the UAE Team Emirates rider. And third is Vlasov. Alexander Vlasov has had a fantastic season so far in 2022, and he's already delivered stage race victories in Spain early in the 2022 season. So we know he's a big favorite here. But of course, my big favorite has to be Rowan Dennis. I've said it many times all the way from stage 1 that he's on flying form. He is a 2-time road time trial champion. So I'm expecting Rowan Dennis to do a marvelous ride here on stage 5 of Tour of Romandie and wrap this up really nice and neat for Jumbo-Visma. Remember, this would be a great victory for Jumbo-Visma because most of the year they're winning a lot with Primoz Roglic, the number 2 best rider in the world, highest ranked rider in the world is, of course, Tadej Pogačar, but Primoz Roglic is just behind him. After that, Jumbo-Visma win oftentimes with Wout van Aert. We know he's a legend in the one-day races. He wins stages at the Tour de France with time trials, mountain stages, and sprint stages on the Champs-Élysées. So when we're talking Jumbo-Visma, to win an overall stage race victory at the World Tour level would be a big result when you're winning with someone other than Primoz Roglic or Wout van Aert. Now, when the racing starts, it's Harry Sweeney, Lotto Soudal, who's in the hot seat. But there's going to be a ton of changes throughout today's individual time trial stage, so you guys should tune in and watch the whole stage live, because if you like individual time trials, you will love today's stage with how much action's going on. In the first third of the race, we're going to see the time change no less than 6 times, with Remy Cavagna, the quick-step rider, taking the hot seat shortly after Harry Sweeney and Marco Brunner led today's individual time trial. Antonio Tiberi, the Trek Segafredo rider, he'll do the most big damage early here in the time trial stage with over a 50-second advantage when he puts himself in the hot seat. That's not going to be good enough, though, because Jan Izagirre from Cofidis is going to come through and strike about 8 seconds off his time. And then there's still another change in the race lead with Rein Tarme Intermarché coming through and throwing his bike at the line to take the hot seat here in the first 1/3 of stage 5 Tour of Romandie. As we start moving deeper into this time trial stage, it's going to be Steven Kruijswijk at the first time check that's up by 17 seconds. Now you got to be getting excited if you're sitting on the couch, because remember, Jumbo-Visma have the race leader's jersey with Rowan Dennis starting today's stage 5. So when you start seeing Jumbo-Visma riders Superdome Stakes already setting fast times out here on stage 5, you just know Rowan Dennis is going to blaze the course when you're sitting on the couch getting all excited if you're a Jumbo-Visma fan. Thibaut Pinot from FDJ will be the next rider to come across the line 17 seconds faster to put himself in the hot seat. Now, Thibaut Pinot did an interview after yesterday's stage 4 and then another interview here after his time trial lead, and talked about how great his legs were and about how he was hoping the race would be a little bit harder. Now you're starting to believe Thibaut Pinot is starting to come back on form. It's been a long time since 2019 where we saw the FDJ rider really start to perform at the top of the peloton level. Remember, in that year's Tour de France in 2019, Thibaut Pinot was amazing at the Tour de France and had to be considered the big favorite to win that 2019 Tour de France until he fell foul to injury and dropped out late in the Tour de France. Now he's back. He's got some form and talking some smack there, and he's starting to back it up. As he's given his interview, it's Sepp Kuss from Jumbo-Visma crosses the finish line for third on today's stage. Again, the build-up is starting to get there. The intensity, you know Rowan Dennis must be on form if his Super Domestiques are riding good. As Sepp Kuss finished third on today's stage at this moment, it's the big favorites that are starting to leave the ramp of today's last and final stage of Tour of Romandie. First to leave is going to be Vlasov from Bora Hansgrohe. He'll get followed 2 minutes later from Juan Caruso from UAE Team Emirates. And then it's going to be race leader Rowan Dennis leaving the start ramp. With all of today's competitors out on the course, now we got to wait 30-35 minutes to find out who's going to win today's last stage individual time trial here at Tour of Romandie. And let me remind you guys, if you win the stage, there's a good chance you could possibly win the overall general classification when the top 10 are wrapped up so neatly with about a 45-second gap amongst all of them. Steven Kruijswijk from Jumbo-Visma will be the next to cross the line, 2 seconds faster than Thibaut Pinot's time. But there's still all of the favorites out on the road. Damiano Caruso, the Bahrain victorious rider, will come through as he gets to about 200 meters to go. We see him accelerating again on the pedals. 50 meters to go. He's looking up at the time clock. He knows it's going to be close. He does one more big acceleration. Throws his bike at the line for 0.78 of a second to take today's race lead here at Tour of Romandie. About the same time Damiano Caruso finished today's stage, back there at the first time check, it's Simon Geschke that is throwing in the fastest time. He's up by 14 seconds on today's first time check. He's got Vlasov though following behind Geschke, and then of course Juan Caruso is back there looking good on the pedals. In the time trial position on his time trial bike is race leader Rowan Dennis. Now you know these first 5 kilometers of flat roads here at Tour of Romandie are the crucial section for Rowan Dennis. He's a specialty time trial specialist and wins throughout his career, throughout the calendar season, just not at the World Championships. So this is the place where Rowan Dennis can make his most damage on his competition here at Tour of Romandie. He looks perfect on the bike, riding in the big chain ring. But when we show Vlasov coming up to the first time check, he's 14 seconds up in the lead here at Tour of Romandie. Now, remember, there's still a lot of racing left at 8.8 kilometers. The road has just started going up. Vlasov from Bora Hansgrohe, he looks great on the pedals, still statue-like and riding smooth here on the last stage of Tour of Romandie. Behind, it's going to be Rowan Dennis that comes across the first time check. And guess what? He's almost 30 seconds off of the race leader's time of Vlasov up the front. With his gap of only 18 seconds on the general classification, Rowan Dennis has to pull a rabbit out of the hat at this point in time, and it doesn't look like it's happening. Vlasov up front looks incredibly smooth. Every time we go back to Rowan Dennis, he is suffering on the bike, riding on the absolute tip of the saddle, and every time his left and right legs push the pedal, we see his upper body move from left to right, trying to get every ounce of energy he can out of the pedals. Up front is Simon Geschke, Cofidis rider, crossing the finish line here to take the hot seat, more than 30 seconds up on Damiano Caruso's time. Guys, throughout today's stage, there's time changes all over the place. You think you're getting comfortable on the couch, you gotta go run and get some breakfast early this morning, only to find out something's happening. I gotta drop the breakfast, run back to the couch because there is another best time on the stage. Now, with Simon Geske's time of 33 seconds up on Damiano Caruso, you gotta start wondering, did the Cofidis rider win today's stage 5 at Tour of Romandie? Has he moved himself up into the hot seat on today's stage? Yes, but has he won the general classification? Is he gonna finish podium? That stuff I don't know yet. Gino Mader from Bahrain victorious will be the next to cross the line. He'll throw his bike across the line. It won't be enough to upset the Cofidis rider up front, Simon Geschke, as he's 5 seconds off his time. But it is enough to move him into the hot seat for the general classification win it here at Tour of Romandie. But let me remind you guys, it's still Vlasov behind, and he set the fastest time at the first time check. Vlasov is blazing on the pedals. When we see him come around the final corner here in stage 5, he's got a 40-plus second advantage still. A little bit further still to go to the line. When he crosses today's finish line, up by 30 seconds on Simon Geske's time. Now we know he's got the GC fatigue package wrapped up if race leader back there, Rowan Dennis, cannot find the form. The sun is shining on Rowan Dennis at this moment, and it rained on Vlasov at the finish, but the sunshine is not helping Rowan Dennis at all as he's losing time, massive time here on today's stage 5. The next question isn't whether or not if he's going to win general classification. It's can he get on the podium? That is out of reach now with 1 kilometer to go. We're just wondering if Rowan Dennis can survive today's race to get himself and keep a top 10 placing on the general classification. As he comes around the final bend to the finish line, we see him, he's 12th on today's stage. Then we'll see it go 13th on today's stage, 14th on today's stage, 15th on today's stage. It counts down to 17th, 20 on today's stage. He crosses the line for 22nd on today's stage, over 2 minutes back on Vlasov, the Bora Hansgrohe rider. At this point in time, Vlasov knows he's got the stage win and the general classification victory wrapped up for Bora Hansgrohe. Congratulations, Vlasov. That was a fantastic week of racing. Yesterday, you guys went 1 and 2 on the stage. Today, you win the stage, win the general classification here at Tour of Romandie. Now, for Rowan Dennis, I got to tell you guys, it was a bad day. Right? It was a bad day. And I brought the jerseys up here from Radio Shack to explain that I know the feeling. Rowan Dennis, it happens. It's no big deal. You got to wrap it up. I could still feel how much pain and suffering I had in my legs when I won the Tour of California in 2011 and then went back in 2012. We went to the time trial stage in Bakersfield. It was incredibly hot, the hottest day of the whole season in 2012, and it was about 100 degrees. I blew up in the time trial, knew the moment that I left the ramp that I was in trouble, and by the time I finished the stage, I looked much worse than Rowan Dennis looked here at the finish of stage 5. I was on the curb, cramping every place in my body imaginable, and then when I finally got up off the curb, I barely held myself in a top 10 general classification at Tour of California. Now, I'll tell you guys honestly, I had a massive bonus contract to win Tour of California in 2012. So when I lost that time trial, much like Rowan Dennis lost here at Tour of Romandie, I know the feeling. I lost $150,000 that day in the time trial because my bonus was that much if I won Tour of California. And I was on flying form just like Rowan Dennis was here at Tour of Romandie. And then that day wiped any hope of winning Tour of California out. So Rowan Dennis, when you're upset tonight thinking about the loss here at Tour of Romandie, I feel your pain. I still feel that loss from 2012 in that time trial every time I see somebody do a bad TT like here at Tour of Romandie with Rowan Dennis. So guys, when I'm sitting here on the butterfly effect and I had my big favorite as Rowan Dennis who just fell apart in today's stage, I can feel it. I shed a tear for you. It was a hard day out there for Jumbo-Visma, who had a chance at wrapping up a World Tour victory for a rider other than Wout van Aert and Primoz Roglic. It's a big loss to the team, and it's a massive loss to Rowan Dennis, who had a chance to put a fantastic victory on his resume after today's 15.8 kilometer time trial. If those 15 kilometers had just gone fantastic, he would have added a spectacular victory to his resume. Instead, it's a big loss. He'll finish 8th on the general classification. His teammate Steven Kruijswijk will jump over him and finish 7th on the general classification. And then the top 3, Vlasov, I already told you he won. Gino Mader from Bahrain Victorious will finish 2nd on the classification. And Simon Geschke, Cofidis, will round out the podium here for the general classification at Tour of Romandie. A very unexpected podium for Geschke here for Cofidis, and then an unexpected loss for Rowan Dennis here at Tour of Romandie. Fantastic week of racing. Remember, the Giro d'Italia is coming soon, so make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Butterfly Effect, and I'll see you on the next edition.